welcome to the Dive Into Reiki podcast. Today is the 50th podcast I'm recording. I can't believe I just started a little bit over 3 years ago at the end of 2020. And I have with me today, who was my first guest, Helene Williams. Hi, Helene.
Hi.
And I'm very, very excited. I didn't plan it for her to be on the 50th episode. We wanted to just do a catch up, and it just fell on the perfect episode. So I'm really grateful for that. And you can see, I'm going to link in the notes the first episode I recorded with Helene, where you can see her journey. But today we're going to be focusing on a little bit of all the stuff she's been doing lately, which has to do a little bit with Reiki in healthcare and also the side of meditation. So just to get you on board, Helene Williams is a registered nurse and Reiki master teacher based in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. A background in healthcare has allowed Helene to contribute to the practice much more than sessions and the regular teaching of classes. She has presented her knowledge of Reiki and holistic healthcare at national nursing conferences and participated in a Reiki research study conducted in a hospital. Notably, she established the Lancaster Community Reiki Clinic in 2013, actively volunteered at the VA Medical Center in Lebanon, Pennsylvania, and was a panelist at the Omega's Institute's Wisdom of Reiki conference. Helene also has a mindful meditation teacher certification from the Awareness Training Institute and the Greater Good Science Center at the University of California, Berkeley, with Jack Cornfriend and Tara Brach, which is something we're going to be talking about today. And her passion for teaching Reiki and mindfulness meditation is evident as she finds joy in witnessing the transformative impact these practices can have on other people's lives. Thank you so much, Helene.
Thanks so much. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm 50 episodes. Like, congratulations, kudos. So amazing. I feel really honored to be the first in the 50th. So I'm really anxious to catch up.
Great. And just to mention, a lot of people have left notes and they love your first interview. So they're going to be very happy to hear from you. So we spoke 3 years and a half ago, and I know this is probably not completely Reiki, but you did a quite an intensive training in mindful meditation as a teacher certification, again, with people like Jack Cornfriend and Tara Brach. If you don't know them, Google them. I'll put the names in the notes as well if you're hearing this. And they're very, very important people. Jack Kornfeld is probably one of the first people to bring meditation to the US, together with the likes of Sharon Salzberg. So tell us a little bit why you decided to do that, being a Reiki teacher and practitioner, and a little bit of the experience, and also why this program specifically.
Well, it was during COVID, actually. And I was, as we do as Reiki practitioners, I'm like looking for little courses to take online. And this Power of Awareness course popped up, I think, on Facebook. And I thought, well, that looks interesting. It was just like a little course. Actually, I don't even remember how many days it was, but I was like, let me check that out. And I was really transformed by it. I was like, wow, I want to learn more. And so after that, then I signed up for the 2-year meditation, 2-year teacher certification program in mindfulness, and it was transformational. I was really looking for something to deepen my meditation practice. Like, that's the main reason I wanted to take it, because I have my Reiki practice and my Reiki meditations, but I just felt like I could go a little bit deeper inside, really learn more about mindfulness itself, and kind of curious to see how that would strengthen my Reiki practice.
And happen. Did
Yeah,
it
yeah.
strengthen your Reiki practice or not? Did it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, as far as mindfulness, presence, awareness for Reiki practice, for my own practice, like, it strengthened it. Like, I had a daily self Reiki practice and a meditation practice, but sometimes, it was like a little wobbly, even though I've been doing it for a long time, and it was like this boost that I got from it. Plus, it also helped me to really calm my mind a lot more, because the teacher training itself was actually pretty intensive. It was a 2-year program, and there was a commitment to complete everything on time, and then there was a practicum at the end. So I thought it was a very, very thorough training. I have binder. I printed everything out. I know, trees. I'm sorry. But like the binder's like this thick.
My
Because
God.
I'm still a paper person because I'm a little bit older and I like to like look at things in that way. But yeah, the training was very, very intensive, but very heart opening as well. Like it was intensive, but it was not stressful because you're studying mindfulness and there's new practices every week and going just deeper and deeper and deeper into mindfulness and the different aspects of it. So I really, really enjoyed it. And prior to going to that, I had to do a 7-day silent retreat, and it was during COVID.
Oh
So
no.
we had
That
we had
scared the
I
hell
don't
out of me. Yeah.
well we couldn't there was no retreat centers open during COVID, so they give us the option of doing an online retreat at home, and I'm very lucky because my brother has a 30-acre house in the woods, and so he has a little guest house next to his house, and so I went there and I kind of immersed myself in the online retreat. And then this year I did a 7-day in-person silent retreat. It was so transformational.
It was very different when you go like to a place versus by yourself online. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because online you still have this thing in front of you, this distraction, even though I turned my cell phone off, you're still online and there's just something so much more heart opening when you're with a group.
And I was thinking as you were talking, because there are two things that you said that really like struck my mind today. First of all, a 2 years intensive program, right? In Reiki training, we take those classes, 8 hours. Some of the trainings, probably more Takata style, take a year or a few months. And then you said commitment, right? And I was thinking those are two things that are not very common to the Reiki practice, but can really enrich our Reiki practice. Committing to practice and also like taking our training slower. And then the other thing I started thinking is like when, especially the people who practice a more Japanese style, we teach meditation, but we were never really trained to teach meditation. I didn't really understand meditation until I went to Japan and I got taught. I wasn't taught to teach. They're like, oh, this is what meditation it is, when the monk really was on my back correcting everything. Currently, I'm training with a Shin Buddhist priest on the same thing. So, how do you think your teaching of some of the practices in Reiki evolve by learning how to teach meditation? Sorry, that was a very rambly sentence.
Well, I have a much more greater understanding of meditation itself and the purpose of it, you know, presence, awareness, clear insight. So I know kind of more of the outcome of what the practice should be. And I think that was really helpful in helping me teach my classes, my Reiki classes, when I came back from that. Actually, I haven't taught a Reiki class since I came back from that retreat. I'm teaching one starting next week. So I'm kind of interested to see how that goes. But the teacher training itself, of course, I've taught Reiki since then, but I haven't taught since attended the retreat.
Perfect. Amazing. And I think you said another thing very important when we know the outcome. And I'm reminded of like why, especially you and I on the Japanese lineage, we ask people, why do you practice Reiki? Right? What is the outcome you're willing, and that outcome can be changeable. So if I ask you now, why do you practice Reiki versus when we talked 3 years ago, what will it be, your answer?
I think it's a way to uh, gain insight. It's a deeper way. At least with using the meditation practices now, it's a way to gain clarity and insight and understanding and deepen compassion. And I just I I I I teach it because I am passionate about it and I love the outcome and I love the students and I like to just immerse myself in the practice and mindfulness practice. Well, I don't know. I feel like I went around on that one too.
It's okay, we can totally do that. No, but I think, deepening compassion and I think I think also another thing we sometimes you and I have talked is at the end, Reiki is a mindfulness practice, right? Like
Mm,
just for today, it's about being present, it's not being in the past, not being in the future. And I think uh, at the beginning, I didn't train people in that. I was like, place your hands here. And then I was talking to someone and was saying, well, some people it's easier for they to perhaps go get lost in the thought and just place their hands. I'm like, yeah, but then where is their energy, right? Where is their mind? So we teach how to place the hands, but we don't teach what to do with the mind. And that's why I think it's so valuable that you took this amazing training, in training the mind, right? Because at the end, the hands are just
mm.
the hands. But Reiki is a lot more than hands, at least in some lineages.
And mindfulness is presence, it's being in the body. It's a grounding practice, it's being able to share with students that, you know, um, to not be in their heads during when they're offering Reiki to others. It's a practice of presence, of moment to moment awareness. So it really keeps you focused in on the person that you're working with because you're really feeling into your body, right? You're not trying to pick up stuff from the other person, right? But you're present with your own feelings, your own sensations, and not that we interpret that in any way, but have a deeper connection to our own body, our own sensations, our own feelings, having an awareness when the mind is scattering off on a story, and then being able to bring it back more quickly. So I think it really develops presence as a practitioner.
I love that. And I love what you mentioned about being able to be aware but not get distracted by sensation. That is so important and so hard to do.
It's so hard to do, but it's also being aware and not in our head. So you know, it's just a deepening of the practice.
I I love that. And often we don't know how to go deeper and we just add things, crystals, perfumes, we chant and we add bowls, which is nothing wrong, but there is another way we can just deepen by being more present. And sounds simple, really hard to do.
Simple, and simplicity is everything.
Yeah.
Simplicity is where presence is. I did all those things too in the beginning with Reiki. I had the crystals and I had the pendulum and I had aromatherapy and all the other things that like crutches because I'm like, well, maybe I need this and maybe I need that because maybe I'm not doing this right or that right. Where with mindfulness practice, you learn to trust yourself and know that you are all you need. Like you are the facilitator of the flow, and the more present you are, the more the flow will be able to just do what it needs to do.
I I I really appreciate you sharing that. I think it's we all need to hear it often. We are all we need. And again, if we want to use those things from a love for those practices, is one thing. But as you said, out of fear, that is not enough. That is really important to make the distinctions as well and be honest with ourselves. So I went to a kind of retreat for work, and that was quite interesting. And they did an exercise at the end that I really loved, and I want to ask you those same questions regarding your 2 years of training. Again, Jack Cornfield, Tara Brach. Some people may be considering these trainings because they're very well known, very respected. Probably some of the best training you can get here in the US. So I'm going to ask you three questions. The first one is, what did you love the most about the training?
I like structure, and it was structured. I learned best by I'm a nurse, so it's kind of like that's how I learn best. I have to have, I like to read it, I like to see it, I like to hear it. And so it was very structured in that way. There's also we had a mentor, so we worked with a mentor. So we weren't out there on our own. We also had a mentor group that we were the same group that went through the 2-year training. Um, so I liked the structure of the program and the comprehensiveness of it, and the heartfelt practice that I felt from it. It wasn't, there's a lot of compassion practices, and there's a lot of joy practices. There's forgiveness practices, and it all aligns with Reiki.
Yeah. Yeah. When you just said this, I'm like, okay, those are the Reiki precepts, right? Like
Hmm.
That is beautiful. And for me, the other day I did a loving kindness meditation with the Reiki precepts as affirmation. And actually, now that's the way I do my loving kindness meditation, because I can wish politicians to be free of anger and worry. And it's a lot easier to do that, which I've incorporated in my practice, than wishing them happiness. I know I'm not Buddha yet, but I can wish them free of anger and worry. So they do align beautifully. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's all the same. It's
Yeah.
just a different way of looking at it.
I love it. So the other thing is, one thing that you learned, like one trick, one tip, one thing that you learned that you really think, why this is very useful.
Daily practice.
Yes, because you learn it with your body, not just knowing, like, yeah, you literally got it going on.
I mean, you have to do that. I
Yeah.
mean, it's part of the practice. So that's, I mean, but it's hard because you get out of the training and then you're like, well, maybe today I don't want to sit for 30 minutes. But you kind of create this story that takes you away from presence again. And then you just recognize that and say, oh, I understand what's going on here.
I love the language you just said. You create the story that takes you out of presence. I think that is, you know, it adapts to Reiki practice, it adapts to a practice, right? We start saying, oh, but I don't have time and I have to do this and it's very important. We create those stories. I I gotta steal that from you.
Yeah. I mean, we do. We find all kinds of excuses. I need to go clean the toilet. No, wait, I can't do it now. I have to clean the bathroom. Like, uh, because it's hard to do the practice. It's not easy. Like you have to train yourself to do the practice. But the benefits that you reap from it are just immeasurable.
Perfect. So daily practice, no storylines, no Hulu, no Netflix, no HBO Max. No, knowing all the latest obsession. And the last thing that came, like, what did you feel you will have perhaps like added to this kind of training? Like something that you felt, wow, I wish they also had this, even though in 2 years you probably went through everything.
You know what? I can't really think of anything. That's why I loved it so much. It was so complete that I couldn't possibly think of anything else. It was so comprehensive and so inclusive. There was also a diversity training was part of that. Uh,
Mm.
there was. I can't honestly think of anything. I can't recommend it enough. I know there's like waiting lists for it, and it's only every 2 years. So I would encourage people, if they're interested in it, to look at it now because you might have to wait a year or so.
What I love also about doing these kind of trainings, right? We're going through something, the world is kind of a little bit of a mess, like, again, I was checking today the headlines, and again there is this stuff like, let's go nuclear. So there is a lot of stress. The economy of the world is a little bit difficult, so we're under, all of us, a little bit of a rough situation. And I wanted to talk to you about how to remain hopeful and centered with everything happening in our lives and the world, without going in denial, without, how can we present, right? You were mentioning this, how can we be present with life without being overwhelmed?
Meditation. Keep going back to that word. With meditation, we learn moment to moment awareness. So when things happen, because I do it too, I read the paper every morning. We get the paper delivered here, and it's hard to find some good news in there. And so you kind of tend to get angry or worried or fearful. And when those things happen, we breathe, right? We take a breath and we breathe. And I think the thing that we can do to help is to offer compassion to situations. We can send Reiki to situations as Reiki practitioners. We can, when we run up against a situation with somebody we know, because we know those things are coming up when people have different beliefs about certain things, and we can just sit down and be together in it instead of being on one side or the other. We can say, let me have a greater understanding of what your thought process is, and coming at it with a sense of compassion, because that's the only way that we can kind of open the door to like heal those types of things, is to be like with somebody else and do it in a compassionate way, and listen, and just practice mindfulness, practice compassion, practice loving kindness. And I know that might be sounding like very idealistic, but I do think that in order to help heal what's going on in the world, we have to do it with some mindful compassion.
No, I think that is a beautiful message. And I think if we become angry because we don't agree with what the people may be doing, even if they are like being very violent, then we just add anger, and then it's just fire and fire and fire. The other day it was very funny. I was doing this loving kindness meditation with the precepts with a certain politician, right? Because we know that in Reiki, if we're one with the universe, that means we're one with every human being. So I also heard this practice about this bodhicitta Buddhist practice of wishing light and love into the hearts of the people who actually may endanger the world in a way. So I was practicing loving kindness with this person. And again, thanks to the precepts, may you be free of anger and worry. I suddenly realized we were the same because we were both worried and angry. Like
Mhm.
I felt I was no better or anything with this person. I just felt a deep sense of connection. We were both these human beings, dealing with anger and worry. And it was just a very eye-opening moment, right? A space of like no separation, but not in like in a very like color way. It was just deep compassion for both of us. And then and I still will not like to have dinner with that person, but it's an interesting practice. Like it really like deepens your compassion and takes a lot of the anger away. And then when we're not angry or worried, we actually not frozen into action. We can actually act, right? We can go vote. We can do what whenever we need to do. We can do our day to day, and our life is less affected. So yeah, that
Right, and I think we're able to act more in ways that whatever way we can do, whatever we're compassionate about with social justice, but we can do it from a compassionate heart, uh, and more of an maybe an open mind. And the practice that you just shared reminds me of the just like me practice. I don't know if you've ever heard that practice.
tell me.
So, yeah, you sit with somebody and you say, this person wants to be happy just like me. This person wants to be peaceful just like me. This person wants to be loved just like me. So it helps us to form that connection. There's a whole list. You can Google it. But it's a way for us to remember that we're all connected, even though there's this we feel a big sense of separation at times. We are still all connected. We still all want this at the deepest level. We all want the same things. And I think it really helps us remember um, to that we are connected.
Absolutely, which at the end is the core Reiki practice beyond the hands, way beyond hands-on healing. And I'm also reading a book by Justin Steiner, the part like how Mrs. Takata kind of like let go the Reiki precepts aside. And there were a bunch of political reasons at the time. Literally, sometimes we think she just took them out, but actually she would have been sent to a concentration camp if she had kept it very Buddhist. So I probably would have taken everything away too. But at the end, we have to remember those precepts are the core, right? Like they are really pointing the way to what Reiki practice is all about. It's not about just healing a knee pain or a shoulder pain. It's really about
Yeah,
the
and I know Franz says like the first three are like the hardest. Take us away from presence,
yeah,
but they're about coming into presence, because we come away from presence with anger, worry, fear, and the others are bringing us into what we already are. You know, kindness, compassion, gratitude, being true to who we are at the core of who we are.
that's beautiful. So you also are actually helping train because you're still a nurse. You probably are not working full time as a nurse anymore. But you had a long career in healthcare, and you also brought a lot of Reiki in healthcare. You had, you really, that's where you found Reiki actually. And again, I'm going to send people to watch your first interview and discover also about your picnic coat. But so you teach already a Reiki for healthcare practitioners, but you're also advancing that and have a new offering. So tell us a little bit about that side of your practice as well.
So I wanted to create a course where a layperson who's interested in coming into a hospital setting, or not even hospital, healthcare settings in general, because there's tons of them. We have hospitals, we have extended care facilities, we have hospice centers, we have chemotherapy infusion centers, dental offices. Like, who wouldn't want Reiki in a dental office? So
Oh,
there's like,
that makes
there's
my face.
there's so many opportunities. And so I wanted to teach a layperson what it looks like. What does it look like to practice in different types of settings within healthcare, and how to kind of get your foot in the door. So some suggestions with that. And because there's so much to consider when people think about doing Reiki in a hospital, for example, they don't always necessarily know what that is going to look like, because it isn't always pretty. Like, there's pain and there's suffering, there's blood, there's urine, there's people coming in and out constantly in the room. Like, you're not going to get a 30-minute session in for somebody because you're always getting interrupted by something. Then there's protocols, for example, of like what you need to do for safety wise for the patient. Simple things like you need to learn how to raise the bed up and down, right, for safety concerns. So there's a lot of little pieces that I bring into that class, so that people will feel comfortable going into that, and also understanding the protocols that are needed. It's going to be different than it looks in your own personal practice, because if you go into a hospital setting, you have to have a clear protocol of what this program is going to look like. So, and to have that all set up so you can go in there with confidence and ease when you make an appointment with whoever the powers might be, to say, look, I'd really like to start a program here. So I think it's a pretty comprehensive course. I just finished it. People seemed, from the feedback I got, and I always, part of my teaching is always getting very complete feedback with having people fill out surveys and reviews, and they're anonymous, so people can say whatever they want. And it was very well received. So I'm looking forward to doing that again online, probably this summer.
And I think also, like, we have, again, we're talking about the intention and the impact, right? I think we all have very good intention, but it's a little bit about the same thing. If we go without a clear structure, picking up like all the words we've been talking into a hospital, like, they're gonna just, like, we're gonna be speaking a different language than they are, and the odds of us succeeding or establishing the program are very low. So especially if, like me, you don't have any background in healthcare settings, right? I remember I reached out to spas and stuff, and like I never got anything because I probably what I sent was completely insane. And I think also, like, that's the beauty of having people like you and other people who've been on healthcare settings, like really sharing that wisdom with us. So I highly encourage, and with Helene or with whoever, if you really are interested in that, just don't go and show up. Just also get a little bit of training, because they're gonna take it a lot more seriously.
Yeah, and part of that training too is also how to talk to healthcare professionals about Reiki, that so it doesn't sound, like it can sound sometimes, a little woo-woo.
Oh, well,
Um,
you're gonna have to tell me more about that. I was in a healthcare training, and one thing, like, I remember was like, remember, doctors they're not gonna give you like a treatment because of emotions. They need like real tactical, serious information. So is that true?
well, it's just like everybody else. You kind of get a feel of who you're talking to, and then you kind of go from there. But realistically, yes, they want an explanation that they can understand. Unfortunately, universal life force energy isn't that explanation. because you just get an eye roll. So in the class, we do a role playing.
Oh, cool.
Um, I give actual examples of situations that I ran into in the hospital and then how to respond to them. So it's fun.
And that's also very practical, right? Because sometimes we just talk like do this, do that, but role playing, I advise that to my students, like do your first Reiki one with friends and like go and role play, try, just practice somehow, right?
Yeah, it's important because when you hear somebody else saying words, because we do like example A, which probably isn't the best way to explain it, and then we do example B, and they can really see the difference of how that would sound.
Well, and obviously you already had the bad experience of explaining it the wrong way, so you already know what happened.
I do many times.
Oh my God. And but that also says resilience, right? If you fail once, just regroup and go back again. It's important to be resilient. I remember many years ago I was invited a great magazine, they invited me to talk about Reiki. I bombed so badly. I left there. I'm like, I'm never gonna be able to about Reiki in public. And then I stopped talking for 6 months and then I regroup and I learned from that. So also if you F up around the way, just learn, adjust, and go again.
Yeah, I mean it's all a learning curve. I'm still learning. All those experiences that where you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. They're like experiences that you grow from, and then you are able to keep amping it up and speaking with a lot more confidence.
I have a just curiosity question. So palliative care, hospitals, infusion center, like I think chemotherapy infusion center is such a, I never heard of that. And that's brilliant that you're mentioning those venues because also sometimes we think just hospitals.
Mm.
Which doctors are the hardest to convince?
Well, it's not really okay. Well, I don't, that's a
Sorry.
little judgmental. Um, uh, you really want me to answer that?
No, I gotta skip it because I don't want you to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I mean, there's in every discipline, um, there's always doctors who are more receptive, and then there's always doctors who aren't, and that's okay. And the important thing that the ones who really don't want to hear about it is that they say, as long as it doesn't hurt my patients, I'm okay with it.
Oh, so you really have to get that safety, like no harm message quite up front then.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, they understand usually the best way I always found to set it up was doing it for the staff first. And if the physicians want to join in on that Reiki day, come on in. But then they hear it from the staff and they know that it's helpful. And then they start to hear it from the patients as well.
So also having the experience in the staff versus just blah, 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 just have people. And we're not going to share any more tips because this is a training, but those are some wonderful tips already. First of all, like expand your vision of venues, really show the safety and have the staff experience it. That those are three jewels. And the play acting, I'm not going to force you to do. But I think also again, perhaps practice. When I used to present, I was scared of presenting like in front of people. I will practice in front of the mirror. So have your elevator pitch, practice, those things are incredible. And I know we want to do a spiritual practice and just do the spiritual side, but to bring it out in the world, we need structure, presence, all those things, language that is easy to break barriers with, and things that perhaps are a little bit I consider less spiritual, but it's all in favor of the spiritual in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. And then, so you're gonna be doing more training in these areas, or anything you would love to share, like what you're planning for the future? Because again, the healthcare system needs a lot of love, especially with COVID, that it feels like it shrank a little bit with the pandemic. So, how do you see that, and what you would like to see in the future?
I mean, ideally, it would be wonderful if every hospital, every healthcare organization had a Reiki program, not only just for the patients, but for the staff, because we're experiencing a lot of burnout. A lot of people are leaving healthcare, especially after COVID, and there's a lot of shortages. And so if we could get hospitals to open the door to get trainings for the staff, not necessarily so that they do it for the patients, right? But they do it for their own self-care so that they can build some, resilience and they can take care of themselves a little bit better because healthcare workers are kind of the worst ones for taking care of themselves. We just want to give and give and give and give, and then we suffer extreme burnout. So if we could get more programs started, at least for the staff to help take care of themselves without the expectation that they're going to be doing it for their patients because they already have enough to do.
Yeah, and also they get those credits if they actually take the training from some the instructor that actually allowed to give that educational credit, right?
Well, if they have that, if they offer that,
Yeah.
yes, that's also a perk. Yes.
Yeah, because they have to study something. So as well, but as you said, right, the story that takes you out of presence and practice, like the story we made not to take care of ourselves sometimes as well and rest are a little bit heavy. So, any plans for the rest of the year that you would love to share in terms of your practice, classes? You have a meditation every Sunday evening. I'm going to be sharing that link as well. It's fantastic Sunday evenings, which is on my dinner time. So sometimes I don't join. But any other thing that you would like to highlight as well?
Well, I'm also on the board of the Center for Reiki Research, and they have a big international online conference coming up June. I have to look at the dates, June 1st and 2nd. And that's always informative. So if you want to learn more about Reiki research, I'll be doing a Reiki meditation at the break during that on one of the days. Um, I hope to, at some point, I'm not sure this year, perhaps next year, lead my own retreat, a day long. I'm not sure I can get it in anymore this year, but I'll be just doing my routine Reiki trainings. I've increased those trainings to 6 weeks instead of 2 days. So it's a 3 hour class every once a week for 6 weeks. And because I really think it's so important, if you can do it, to really stretch the trainings out so that people can take time to digest the information, come back, feel the support of the group, feel the support of the teacher. And I think last year it went really well. And so I'm looking forward to doing that again this year. I'd love to do another retreat this year, and that's definitely going to be on the books because it was so beneficial and heart opening. I just felt like when I left that retreat, my heart was just like wide open. It was just beautiful. And so, in order for me to keep enhancing my practice, I think the mindfulness retreats are also something really important for me. And I'm not saying everybody has to do that, but it's really a wonderful experience.
But I think it's important to have something that takes us deeper into whatever practice we are. It can be perhaps Reiki shares, it can be, different kinds of mindfulness or uh, techniques, but knowing that that initial class is just an initial class, right? Like this is just the start of the road, and sometimes we need to go deeper, and often we get amazing insight from something that is literally not a Reiki class but is related to Reiki, like meditation classes, martial arts, Buddhism, Qigong, every kind of stuff that has a little bit of the similar principles.
They're all related,
Yeah.
they're all related. And I think that's an important piece to remember too. Whatever we feel connected with. I love the Qigong. We did some Qigong at the retreat. It's all the same. And I think it's a beautiful practice. All these practices are beautiful because they just take us on this beautiful journey. And sometimes we're not even sure where that's going to lead us, but it's usually very special place and a place where we can experience deep healing.
Beautiful. And I have one last question, and it's not an oops, because this is a second episode, so we break the structure. And it's like if Helen today could say something to the Helen that I interviewed 3 years and a little bit ago, what would she tell her younger Helen?
I think to really lean into the Reiki precepts of worry, because I think that was something that I was really clinging to a lot. And I know it's hard It's still hard to let go of that worry precept, but kind of really leaning into that, exploring that more, and it just like deepening into the meditation practice again is, um, I would say, I wish I would have. Well, I don't know. Rephrase that again. I kind of like lost my thought there.
It's okay. Today is a no rules episode. For example, what will you tell yourself? Like, I will tell myself from the moment we were still in the pandemic, like, soften, it will all start to flow, breathe, and yeah, and practice more, right?
It's
What would
practice
you
more. Yeah, I would say lean into my practice, my meditation practice deeper, because that's where the magic is. That's where we really can discover our true self. That's where we can learn to, although, going into every day and not worrying is not realistic. I think it's going to be a long time till I don't think that it will ever be in this lifetime that I'm enlightened. But in the same way, enlightenment to me on another level feels like being the precepts, being in that place of no anger and no worry and being compassionate. If I can do that for a few moments every day, that's that's all I need, because we can change things with short practice. We don't have to do hours and hours and hours of practice. We can do short practices every day that can make a really huge change in our lives. So I would just say consistent practice.
It's beautiful. And you said something very important, like we're not enlightened fully all the time, but we are. Those moments when we're living the presence, it may be a second or a minute, in a way we are enlightened and we can change people's life. And I'm gonna close this with a very silly story. I was picking up my suitcase yesterday. It was too big. They put, when you have a tiny plane, they take your carry-on and put it downstairs and say pick it up at the gate. But I literally never know where the gate is, outside the plane, in the corner, at the gate. Literally, I'm really literal. So I'm like, I go out and I'm at the gate. I'm like, where's my suitcase? She's like, no, it's in the corner there, like of the little thing that takes you to the plane. I'm like, but you cannot go back. So you have to wait. So she was upset because I didn't bring my suitcase. So she kept me waiting. My whole team had to leave. I'm waiting. And I was like, well, do I get upset? Well, I was the one who didn't see the suitcase. So I just waited with a stupid smile on my face, like just like I am in no rush. And the woman went from anger at the end because I wasn't reacting. I was calm, I was breathing, I was like, do not anger, do not worry. She ended up after 10 minutes, albeit, picking up the suitcase with a smile and say, I'm so sorry. I'm like, if I had told her something, she would have screamed at me, right? And she had the sweetest expression and her day didn't escalate. So it sounds silly, but those precepts and those moments that you mentioned for me actually can change lives, or at least save an evening, from someone.
And that's the sweetness of the practice.
Yeah.
Like we can make a change in somebody's life just by doing that. And it's beautiful.
It's so easy and so fantastic, but we forget because of the stories that take us away. So that's that. I'm telling you, I'm totally stealing that. Helen, it's such a pleasure to reconnect. For those of you who are not watching, they're listening, which is probably 90% of the people. You are glowing, and there is such a sweet expression in your face that I'm like, you can see that meditation go through every pore of your body, that Reiki light shining through. So, thank you so much for sharing your experience at this training that is so beautiful, and also all those classes you're offering, and those tips for healthcare as well. I learned something today, and I've been doing a lot of podcasts. So every time I still learn, I'm like, yes, it motivates to keep me going. So thank you so much from all my heart.
Thank you. It was so fun to be with you today. And I can't wait till the 100th episode.
You may be back for the 100 episode. You're gonna be my every 50 episode. You're gonna have Helen talking.
I'll have to get something new. No, I'm just so proud of you and happy for you. And congratulations.
Thank you so much. Kisses.